Welcome to the podcast that is designed to fuel your success in selling technology solutions. I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Telarus, and this is Next Level Biz Tech. Everybody, welcome back. We got a wild episode for you today here. The title of this episode is What Do Propane Tanks, Cows, and Air Quality Sensors Have in Common? And you're thinking, that's not CCAS, that's not security. What in the world are we going to talk about today? We're not going to give it away, but we're going to get to it because they're all important and it's technology and it's fun. So today, I would like to welcome on back to the show, as we did a fireside chat a while back, Ken Mills, CEO of EpicIO. Ken, welcome on.
Thanks, Josh. Long-time listener, first-time caller, and with that title, I had to bring the shirt that I felt was appropriate. I like big data, and I cannot lie. So I think we'll get into a bunch of topics, and it should be fun. Thanks for having me.
Love it, man. Let's jump in. I want to hear your personal background story. For anybody that is not going to go and listen to our awesome fireside chat, I thought we talked about some cool stuff when we did the studio. Give them a little bit of a background, just you personally. How did you get into this? How has everything come together? Where did you start out? And how did you get where you're at now?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting aspects is my mom is the nerd of the family. She read every manual, still does, reads every blog, watches every Apple keynote. She is on top of what's going on. And I just kind of picked that up as a kid. And, we were early in the bulletin board days, with 56K modems when those were cool, if they ever were. I guess they were pre-work back then. And, AOL chat rooms, which are, the bane of our existence, and all of those experience taught me about computers and got me hooked on the technology. And I just kind of grew up in that space of loving tech and loving to learn new things. I'm just a big nerd at heart. And so, I jumped at a chance to join Cisco Technologies way back when, after the dot-com bust, when they were looking for a number of growth areas and non-traditional markets. So they started this, what they called emerging technologies team, where we were out there looking for new adjacent businesses, either new customer segments, new technologies, new acquisitions. And we built a team to go build those go-to-markets and build those businesses, where most of the people we talked to that we said we work for Cisco, they're like, oh, I know the food company. You're like, no, different Cisco, Cisco networking. And so, we didn't have that brand power in these adjacent markets that we had in routing and switching at the time. And so it was fun. I learned a lot about how to, take technology from an idea into, an actual market and grow it. And then I got to spend, I did that for almost 9 years, and I got to spend almost 7 years at EMC Corporation, which became Dell Technologies, in doing the same thing. So we launched a number of video businesses, computer vision businesses, IoT business, a number of different things. And so I was very fortunate to be part of a very fast-growing team across the globe. And I was the general manager of those businesses for a number of years and about $2 billion in revenue, and decided to do something more entrepreneurial and partnered up with a private equity firm and decided to leave a cushy tech job at the time and in the middle of COVID, or the start of COVID, which was, my wife thought was a terrible idea. Probably was a terrible idea. She's probably right. And jump ship and do this. So, we brought together 3 companies in 2020 around IoT with IntelliSite acquisition. We brought together Deep Vision for our computer vision skill set and team. We acquired BroadSky, which most of the folks that are listening to this probably recognize that name more than any other, which rounded out the connectivity aspect of our business. So we could launch this concept that I'm very passionate around, which is helping the world be a safer, smarter, more connected place. And so we wanted to have all of the technology that enabled us to do that in various compelling ways. And that's what the combination of IntelliSite, Deep Vision, and BroadSky brought together. And we wanted to launch as a new team with a new mission and a consolidated strategy across the company. So we rebranded under EpicIO, and that's who we are now. And we're excited about really bringing together into market those real products and solutions that hopefully help make the world a safer, smarter, more connected place.
Love it. Great story. One important thing in there, our spouses are always right. And the sooner we learn that, the happier we'll be.
That's
I'm
right.
happy.
Especially on
You're happy.
Valentine's Day,
Trust
right?
me.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah, and it's on Valentine's Day, right? I love it. No, it's a good background. Definitely a lot of big data in there. Certainly justifies the I love big data shirt. Makes a lot of sense. And so I wanna jump in and maybe talk about, as you saw this technology change, as you saw computer vision come in, as you saw some of these Lego blocks come in, talk to me about right now. What are some of the latest things in your current role as CEO of Epic that you've learned, and really what's been the most valuable of how you're trying to apply that? And then we'll get into the cows and the air sensors.
yeah. I mean, the Lego blocks is a great one, right? And we talked about it a little bit last time, and it's one of my favorite talk tracks. I'm sure Taylor and the team can recite it. But I believe that we're in this phase of the technology bell curve of adoption. And if you haven't ever looked at that, there's a great book by a gentleman named Jeffrey Moore, who wrote business books in the 70s, all around technology adoption and crossing the chasm, and how to get technologies to the mass market. And one of the big lessons in his studies that I was very fortunate to learn at Cisco, as we worked directly with him and his team, was this concept around called whole product. And that's a pretty kind of weird term, so I try to make it simple and say pizzas. When people think of a whole product, pizza is the easiest analogy, right? A whole product of a pizza is the crust, the ingredients, the process, the delivery, ordering, everything that you need to get that pizza to your door and enjoy it is all figured out for you. You don't have to do it, right? It's simple, it's repeatable, it's scalable, and it tastes the same pretty much everywhere you order it, if you order it from the same chain. That's a whole product approach to pizza. Customers are looking for that same concept when it comes to AI and IoT and even connectivity solutions like private 5G. They're not ready to go just buy the Lego blocks and put them together on your own and hopefully get the end result that you want. They need a more off the shelf, more whole product experience, much like a pizza. So I like to say customers don't want to buy Legos, they want to buy pizzas. And that's what EpicIO is trying to do, is build as many repeatable pizzas in these complex use cases as possible.
I love that. I love that example. So if I think about what my my kids are of a younger age, and I think about what they look forward to, and what I looked forward to at their age, right? And for me, it was Little Caesars, it was Blockbuster, and it was the AOL dial-up, right? That was that was some of the Friday nights.
Yeah.
And now you bring up the pizza thing, but I think that's an important thing to call out, because what I want our partners to understand is, how do they take all of the great things that you have, how do they take what their customers are doing and help them innovate? Because what we're finding is, we expect the customers to know exactly how to innovate, and the reality is that's our job, is to help them decide what can be innovated. And you mentioned the pizza thing, and so the thing my kids are into now is Friday night Domino's. It's right here. It's 5 minutes from my house. But I just think about the innovation of the pizza tracker, right?
Mhm.
That takes sensors, that takes components, that takes innovation. And was that innovation they thought on their own, or was that innovation that was spurred? And I think we have to look at the tools, the things that you have, of how we can enable to have an innovative conversation like that. And you have all those there, to your point. So it really does boil down that I think the pizza is a great example.
Yeah, it's we talk about this forever, right? It's about finding the problem that is important enough to the customer to put budget behind it to solve. And there's a lot of studies out there from all the major analyst firms. One of the biggest reasons people do not move forward with AI and IoT projects is they don't know where to start, and they don't know what the outcome is going to be and kind of how they're going to get there, right? They don't fully grasp the journey of coming up with the idea, what the problem solution looks like, how much is it going to cost, and what's the value I'm going to get after I spend this money. And so as consultants that we all work with, and we work with these customers, we have to help them build that story and build that vision to understand how they're going to get there, right? So the end result is a pizza you get to enjoy, but there are steps, right? You have to build the crust, you have to put the cheese on, you have to pick the toppings, you have to cook it for the right amount of time, you have to do all these things. You have to deliver it in a proper time so it's still hot and enjoyable in a box that can stand up to the whole process. So all those things have to be figured out. And us as consultants, and Epic with our partnership with the agencies and advisors out here, is that we want to help them bring that innovative idea to the customer and help them think of a way to solve it in a way they hadn't really thought about it before. Because the reality is, nobody's picking up the phone saying, I want to buy a new server to make my pizzas better.
Right.
No one's picking up the phone saying, I want to buy new 5G connectivity because I need to open up the next big retail chain. Like, they're thinking like, I need reliable point of sale. I need, the pizzas to be consistent. I need to know that the ingredients are safe and that we're not making anybody sick, so that we don't lose money and have a reputational hit, right? Those are the problems they care about. So they're not asking for any specific technology. They're asking you to help them solve a business problem. And the quicker we get to that business problem, then the technology, in a sense, is important, but the pieces that make it up aren't as important as the outcome. And that's what we really focus on as Epic is we may use one sensor for one use case. We may use a totally different sensor for another use case. The customer doesn't care, as long as the sensor data is reliable and repeatable enough that they can make a business decision knowing that's going to be accurate.
Right. Great point. Let's call back on those sensors for a second here. Right?
Yeah.
We're talking about, I think the idea that inspired this title is that we saw a visual one day of the connected cow and all of the pieces that contains. And I think that was one of the first things that opened up our idea of how we could really grow this mobility and IoT practice, of the ways that people have been doing things and what can be done to modernize those now. So I know we're talking propane tanks, we're talking air quality sensors, fuel levels, whatever, any of that. I would love to hear from your perspective, pick apart any piece of that or any multi parts of that that you've done together, and just talk to me about how do they tie together, and what does a deployment in something like that even look like once you get the business case understood?
Yeah, the agriculture industry is amazing as a whole when it comes to IoT and using big data and information to get better crop yields and less waste and quicker time to market and less spoilage and all these things that go into making sure that we have food on our table across the country and across the world. It's amazing how innovative our farmers are. So it's kind of crazy how quick to the jump they were on this technology. And they're also some of the ones that are pushing back on things like repairability and EVs as an example. A tractor that can't run 24/7 is not useful to a farmer, right? These are things that we don't think about for your car. That's very different for a farm. So when you think about propane tanks, cows, and connectivity and so forth, I have 7th grade boys, 6th grade boys. So it's hard not to put the obvious one together, right? So you have cows that create methane naturally. Methane is very explosive. So you want an air quality sensor to really recognize that level of methane and make sure that you don't have a leak with your propane. And then you have a very serious situation and you have a barbecue that you didn't plan. That could be bad, right? So, being able to have that sensor quality, that sensor integration is really important. We worked with one customer that had their farm burned down. Actually, it wasn't, and it ruined all of their turkeys and killed all of the turkeys that they were going to use for Thanksgiving. Like literally, they went for 2 years. They were out of business essentially. Fortunately, they had saved some money and they were able to weather the storm. But their whole business was done for multiple years, and it happened because an air compressor sparked and went unchecked and then created a fire that then caught the big refrigerator on fire and then burned it all down, right? So it was a chain reaction of events. So that this farmer automatically is like, hey, how do I prevent that from happening again? Like, what can I use to prevent that from happening again? And so we worked with a combination of IoT sensors and computer vision to analyze heat signatures to make sure that the heat isn't getting out of whack, along with understanding the power surges that might be occurring on the air compressor, which could cause a spark. And then we can correlate those two data points, the computer vision data and the sensor data, and bring that into a multi-sensor enhanced AI solution like Deep Insights, which is the software that we sell, and then analyze that to determine, hey, we have a situation here. You need to shut off this compressor so that it doesn't create a fire and cause further damage. Yes, you might lose some part of your turkeys due to spoilage, but you're not losing the whole farm, right? So those kinds of things apply not only to a turkey farmer, but can apply to that Domino's facility, right? Maintaining the refrigerators for all the ingredients for the pizzas, to the grocery store, to the hotel, to the school, to the wherever, right? So that use case is very horizontal, even though it had a very particular outcome.
Yeah, and I think a pre-warning too. I mean, to your point, if we can save you that, sometimes people just have to look at this, or they want to look at this as just a math problem. Again, I can't do this if I can't cost justify it. What's the ROI? Yeah. Well, the ROI is that if we're charging you a small amount for this sensor, the alerting, the analytics, and that saves you hundreds of thousands of dollars, isn't this the delta's massive, right? How is this even an ROI conversation at that point? So I love when you can put out some very basic ROI. That certainly helps too.
Yeah. who doesn't buy Apple Care on their iPhone, right? I mean, those people are crazy.
The
Why would
prices
you
of it
want to
now,
pay
yeah.
$400 to replace your screen, or $50 to buy the insurance, whatever, right? So it's one of those things that that when you have a problem that the cost is big, if you don't have the right protection, then you put yourself in a bad situation. I mean, in reality, we sell physical versions of insurance policies, no different than your home insurance, your car insurance. You're buying data that's going to give you the warning and the protection from a risk that you may not get, but if you do get it, you need to know about it right away, and
Yeah.
you need to solve it quickly.
No, that's a good. I love that. That's a good way to look at it. Uh, put myself in the frame of a partner. If I'm going out and saying, okay, you're helping me understand some of these verticals. We obviously think of mobility and IoT. We think of manufacturing. We think of agriculture. We think of commercial, medical, all these things. But as you think through that, and we go back to the deployment question, what percentage of customers do you find out there? You went into some of the metrics about how we correlate this sensor against this data and give you an alerting. What percentage would you say of the customers are really even thinking at that level? Or are they just, do they even know that there's necessarily a problem, right? I want to help our partners understand what type of customers are we walking into where they really even think there's anything wrong to start with.
Yeah, so this might be controversial, but my opinion is if the customer doesn't know they have a problem, they're probably not the right customer today. You should put them on the list later
Yeah.
to call in, right? Because the customers that know they have a problem, they're already looking for solutions, and there's a lot of customers that know they have problems. And so my guidance to the partners is go find the customers that already know there's issues and bring them as a way to solve it in an innovative way, in a reliable way that they can consume, versus trying to convince a customer that they have a problem that they haven't quite materialized or figured out what it's costing them yet. So maybe that's not maybe it's more controversial than others would like, but I think there's plenty of opportunity with customers that already know what's going on.
Well,
And it,
yeah. I mean, partners want to get to a no faster. I think
yeah,
they
yeah,
don't want to be drug out, right? They don't want to try to force an opportunity out.
yeah. And my team, I know Taylor's been a part of this conversation. We've debated this, like, well, tell us the ROI of all these things. We can go to these customers and say, here's how much you'll save if you buy this today. And my pushback is if the customer doesn't know that they're losing money, then us educating the ROI is we're too early. Like, they need to know that there's risk already, and they need to be feeling that pain or be already or nervous of that pain to really be ready to make a decision. A good example, that's a big utility customer we worked with. They were spending thousands and thousands of dollars on manpower and fuel to go manually check all these tanks. And it's just what they've always done, right? And the reality is some guy drives out there, checks the tank, it's empty. He leaves, someone comes and fills the tank, 30 minutes later, it's still empty as far as anybody knows, because that was the last time he checked it. Another person comes in, tries to put something in that tank, it's full. Now that person has to go to another facility. They charge the customer a fee because they wasted their time, and there's all this frustration and expense that is, they already knew they had that problem. They already knew this process was not working. And so when we got there, they're like, look, can you just solve this for us? And we said, sure. And so we put together, again, another combination of computer vision and sensors to correlate activity levels and when the site is being utilized so they could better plan for the sites. And then we also gave them fill levels and AI to understand when it's going to be full and likely how long it's going to be before it's full, so they could do better route planning. You combine those two things together, now they have digital transformation that just occurred in their facility and solved a big problem they already knew. They never asked us what sensor did we use. They never asked us what camera did we use. They never asked us any of those questions because it didn't matter to them. They asked us, how much does it cost? And is that cost enough or low enough to make sense for us from a business perspective to offset the problem we know we have? And the answer was yes, and they bought it. And they just renewed for another 5 years.
Yay.
So that's a great example.
We love that. We love that.
Yeah.
No, I was going to go into the example next, so that's perfect. How is that relationship with that customer after? I mean, it seems to me like you dramatically revolutionized how that customer can go to market and build their business and think about things in a different way. This is not a commodity sale. This is not a transactional quote line item, but you changed the way that partner looks at their business, or that customer looks at their business. What changes for you from that customer's perspective after that?
I mean, it's obviously a very sticky, healthy relationship because you're solving a real problem. So we launched a new organization around customer success, and so we have a customer success team that now takes on these customers once we turn them on and know that the customer is happy and everything's working. And they're working with that customer on a quarterly basis, understanding what's working, what's not working, how many tickets do they have. Here's some new things we could do. Here's some other ideas and things we could solve. And we've already expanded that customer to other use cases because we've had those conversations on an ongoing basis, and we've built that trust that we could solve a really meaty, tough problem that they're coming to us with other challenges. And I know you're going to ask about it later, but that's how we got into biosecurity, right? That's the whole genesis of that product.
That's exactly where I was going to go next. Let's jump into that. I mean, when we had you in the studio, we talked fireside. You had some cool things coming out, some decontamination stuff. Talk to me about that. I know we've pinpointed on sensors and analytics and AI vision and all kinds of awesome stuff. But what else is there? Talk to me about some of the other stuff you got cooking.
Yeah, I mean, we're overachievers. We're very nerdy. We like to solve as many hard problems as we can. That's just who we are as a company and as a leadership team. And one of those is biosecurity. So, it's our Post-it note for like 3M. So most people know the story that the Post-it note was an accident. They were trying to build an entirely different compound, and they came up with the Post-it note idea, and they almost threw it away. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar business, right? It's probably one of the most recognizable things that 3M does. And so we hope that the biosecurity is our same level of success, but it really started out as an IoT problem. We had a partner in Panama, and they had a customer who was shipping bananas from Guatemala to the States, and the bananas were dying in high yield rates, and they were losing a ton of money. And they said, hey, we there's this process of ionizing the air that's already been proven for 20 years, but we can't make it consistent in these containers. Can you help us with IoT solve this problem? And we said, sure, of course we can. And so we got our smart team together and folks, and we built a solution with connectivity, IoT sensors, deep insights, our software, the whole thing, edge compute, attached it to the containers, and they shipped them from Guatemala to the US, and all 9 of the containers that we had our equipment on lived. All the bananas lived, and that's why we wear shirts that say "Save the Bananas." And the one that didn't have our technology died. That 80% failure of spoilage of the bananas. And so we said, wait a minute, this is pretty cool. Like we didn't really think about this use case. And the customer said, well, we really want a product. We want something that is like a whole product. Get back to that whole pizza, right? We don't want to put all these parts together. We want to buy something. And so we said, well, we don't have a product. They said, well, go build a product and come back to us, and we'll do this at scale. And so we spent the last year building the biosecurity product, which is the first version that's called the Epic Aura. And essentially, it is a combination of that same technology: edge compute, connectivity, sensors, and our software on the back end in the cloud that creates recipes that ionize and disinfect the air and all the surfaces to kill things like listeria, Panama disease, MRSA, COVID, SARS, E. coli, salmonella, you name it, staph infection. So we've tested with multiple universities and done many microbiology studies and tests and validations and academic reviewed research to validate that this actually works as well as we say it does. And the results have been overwhelming. So we spent literally just the last year taking this idea that we did with a customer and then making it into a pizza that they could buy and consume. So now it's ready and available and can be built and shipped and delivered as a product. And we already have schools, we have gyms, we have food processing facilities, we have egg hatcheries, we have athletic facilities in D1 colleges. We're talking to a Major League Baseball team right now and a Major League Basketball team. We are talking to you name a vertical, patient rooms, daycares. I mean, we have literally all kinds of use cases out the wazoo as there are tons of challenges with people worrying about keeping their space safe. Yeah. And people are now much more aware because of COVID that, hey, wait a minute, maybe our room and our air isn't as safe as we thought it was. And RSV has been pretty deadly this year for children. And our solution kills RSV, right? So it kills any airborne dynamic. And the reason we came up with the solution is there's been UV around forever, but UV is really great. It's actually 100% effective if you use it at the right distance from the light. But if you get too far from that light, or you have something in front of that light between the light and the object, the effective rate goes from 100 to like 0 in a
Yeah.
heartbeat. So you end up with something that you think is safe, and it's really not. You actually have a false sense of security and a false outcome. So we wanted to build something that was a lot more reliable and a lot more effective across the entire surface area. So that's the Aura. So we think that is truly something that can be bought, delivered, put in a box, installed, and then off you go. So that is a very consumable solution.
Love it. So, I mean, in the end of it, I was going to say, let's pick a use case, but it seems to me the size, the scale, the environment, wherever it might be, the disease, the concern, it seems like it has a play for all of those things, right? And it's kind of custom to fit whatever it is. It has the core Aura in it, but the
Yeah.
reality is it can fit any of those use cases. Yeah.
Yeah, the only place it doesn't fit, to always be fair, right, is we don't want to send partners down the wrong path. Is any space that's open 24/7, because we have to have the space has to be empty, because you need to make it safe, and any space that's massively open, so like a huge gym or huge massive cafeteria. Probably not a good use case for it. But if you want to do a classroom or cold storage or a patient room or any of those other facilities, perfect
Yeah,
fits.
I love that. I mean, there's so much too, obviously from a medical side, but you think about the weirdness of where we are with inflation and cost of goods and shipping and produce and shortages. I mean, I have to imagine there's such a vast amount of people looking to figure out how to save cost on that and not perish, whatever the consumables might be. It's great
Yeah,
stuff.
we actually increased in the banana use case the shelf life by 27 days.
Well,
So we're working with some food banks right now to help them do two things: kill any potential listeria, salmonella, or E. coli or bacteria that might make their constituents sick, which are some of the folks who don't have access to healthcare or don't are too far away from healthcare. But so that's a big problem, right? So they want healthy food to these folks, but they also want the food to last as long as possible so they can help as many people as possible. So it's a great double benefit that we're not only helping make sure the food is safer, but available when they need it for those that need it most. So that's one of the projects I'm most excited about, and we're actually donating equipment to some of those facilities to make it even more cost effective, because I believe in that dynamic so much like I know Talaris is big in philanthropy. So something we try to do where we can and help where we can.
love it. Great stuff. All right, top that one. All right, let's we got everybody excited. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. We know this is the future. We know the sky is the limit. If I'm a partner that's not gone down this track yet, how do I walk into my customers that I know probably need or fit some of the things that we've talked about? What's my starting talk track? To identify, whether we're bringing you in, whether they're bringing you in, just opening that door. What is that talk track?
Yeah, if I had to put it in the simplest terms, and one of our CTO uses this analogy, right? And he uses it on an intersection for a city project. If you had someone standing at an intersection 24/7, what would you want them to see and write down? And once you understand that dynamic, we can build the sensor profile to give you that information that you can act on. That same type of question applies to many other use cases. So if you had someone standing here objectively looking at your operation, and you wanted them to write down and identify trends or issues or data, what would that be? And once you understand what those use cases are and what those data sets are, we can build the right sensor portfolio to give you that real-time access to that data that then you could turn into business data that you can make business decisions on. And that's ultimately what people need. So the next question is, once you understand what you're gathering, is what information is needed to make a decision? Like, what's the threshold? What are the factors that come into play that really will ultimately tell you need to do something? And that's where we create the logic around our enhanced AI that says, here's what we've gathered, here's the logic applied to that data, and that logic then generates a result that you can generate an outcome from. So that's the process.
Love it. Okay. All right, Ken, final thoughts. So this is definitely one of those areas that continues to innovate, evolve, change.
Yeah.
So we can't look out really far, because who knows where we're at. We all have robots in our house in 3 years, at the rate we're at now. But so as we wrap, we just look forward, I don't know, 12 months, right? Where do you see, do you want to give any advice, partners, to look out for anything different other than kind of having the conversations that we're asking them to have right now? Anything to be prepared for, things that you see coming down the innovation curve, things like that you want to make us aware of?
Look, I mean, we're at historically low unemployment. I know the news might give you indication otherwise, but we're still at historically low unemployment. If you tried to hire someone lately, I'm sure you can appreciate that. I know we have. I know Talaris has. Right, it's not an easy market to get the best talent. There's a lot of people looking for that. So companies, cities, hospitals are looking for ways to automate processes as much as they can. So the thing that we know is going to change and accelerate, right, and what COVID has actually accelerated dramatically is the understanding that automation is here, and the need to automate is as much as possible is here. So robots, discrete robots, multi-use robots, AI intelligence to help make decisions like ChatGPT is changing the world of content. These things are coming, and they're coming much quicker than any time in history. So if I'm an advisor channel partner, I'm looking for ways that I can get ahead of that digital transformation curve, because it's been talked about a lot. Kind of like the very early days of cloud. Cloud was talked about forever before it became real, and then it became the thing. This now digital transformation is kind of in that same phase, right, where it's been talked about forever. Now it's real. Customers are really looking to buy and deploy and make things happen. And we're working with customers right now that the advisor channel has brought us. That's exactly what they're at. Right? How do we automate this process in our quick service food environment? How do we automate this process in our school? How do we automate this process in our city? How do we automate this process, in our factory, right? All of these things are happening all at once right now. So getting ahead of that curve and being willing to have that conversation is going to be a huge opportunity for the channel. And I think this channel is going to be right there at the front with ahead of the rest of the curve.
Love it. Great stuff. All right, Ken, you dropped some knowledge on us here. I think people are going to be excited about this, learn some stuff, and definitely reaching out to you guys. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's always a blast.
Yeah, Josh, always. Anytime, man. I'm, like I said, big fan. Glad to be on the show, and thanks for having us and being a great partner of ours. And, like I said, don't be afraid of the big data.
Love it, man. Love it. Okay, everybody, that wraps us up for today. I'm your host, Josh Lepresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Talaris, Ken Mills, CEO of EpicIO. Until next time, thanks, everybody.
Next Level BizTech has been a production of Talaris Studio 19. Please visit Talaris.com for more information.